up, guys? Welcome to the Sisterpreneur Podcast, where we discuss all things women, women's health, and business. I am your curator and host, Sharita. Now, today, guys, I don't know if you guys know, this month is Mental Health Awareness Month, and I just decided to hone in on that and invite somebody here that could help us go into details about mental health awareness, therapy, how we can get in therapy, how we can, just be a better individual altogether. So I invited a Haven vet, of course. Today we have Pametria Brown. Thank you so much, Pametria, for coming in. I just want to go ahead and get started and ask you a few questions so we can get to know you, if anything. So who is Pametria Brown as a therapist?
Oh, you said it's a therapist.
Well, go whatever you want to say. Let's get into it.
But the reality is that I am the same all the way. And that is actually my superpower as a therapist, is my ability to engage with people. And so how I show up, big personality, real hey girl, hey, all the top accessories, all of that, that's how I show up for my clients. I'm very much a person who believes that it's comfort in going to work and actually being able to be yourself. That's a luxury that I have. Everybody doesn't have that luxury, and I don't take it for granted. And so I haven't had to flip how I show up for my clients, because that's actually my selling point.
Love that.
My authenticity is what attracts people to me. So like, I've literally had people say, when they looked on my website and they saw me when we had our first session, they was like, you sound exactly how I envisioned you in my head. And I'm like, hey girl, it's me. So that is who I am. I'm very authentic, and I believe in being myself all the way around.
I can tell that you give off a very inviting aura and just a fun altogether aura. So I can imagine that having you as a therapist got to be super dope. So I love that. So what made you become a therapist?
You know what? I am a person who my life has been spirit led, right? And so, we can make plans and we can do the vision boards and all of those things, but I am a person who has listened to spirit. And so sometimes we may be in a place where we're stuck and stagnant, but we get that tug, and whether it's you get laid off, you get evicted, something happens that pushes you, and we see that as a setback. But a lot of times it's a setup for something that's your next level. But when we are so stuck in why me, instead of going to that next phase, that prevents us from growth. And so with me, there were steps that happened that led me to becoming a therapist, but it was not my plan. It was never my intention to be a mental health therapist. I'm a social worker by trade. And so even becoming a social worker wasn't my plan. I went to school and thought I was going to major in psychology, thought I had majored in psychology until they called me to the office, academic affairs, and the lady was like, hey, you haven't declared your major, but we have you listed unofficially as a social worker. I was like, girl, what's that? Who is that? I ain't go to school to sell food stamps. What y'all talking about? And so I'm like, what's up? And so she shows me the curriculum and the courses that I've already been taking, and telling me like how much longer I would be in school if I go this route. And she begins to show me all the possible career paths with social work versus a more narrow path as a psychologist. And so I was like, I ain't got to stay in school longer. Okay, cool. And I just kind of listened to her advisement, and I went the social work path, but it was not something that I intentionally did. But as I have grown as a social worker, I know that social work chose me, right? And that it was already in me. So the same thing with being a therapist. It wasn't something that I set out to do. It happened and it chose me organically. Wow. And I think that there are people who are taught. Like, there are people who are natural therapists, right? Mm-hmm. Everybody say, oh, I'm that friend that everybody talk to, right? So there's somebody who may be a natural born therapist. And then there are people who are school taught. I happen to be a person who is both, right? And so I am able to bring that balance of naturally having that gift, and being in tune with listening to people and observing people, but also being able to back it with what I'm supposed to do in terms of the curriculum and knowing how to find that balance to serve my clients. But it was a tragic event that led me to kind of go more towards a mental health path with my social work. I was working for the Department of Children's Services, and one of my teen clients, I was working with kids in foster care. And so one of my teen clients who I was super cool with, he was like one of my favorites, he actually died by suicide.
Oh, wow.
And it completely caught me off guard.
Yeah.
This kid was like a baby Kevin Hart, okay?
Wow.
And so he had a dark side to him. He was one of those people that had dark humor, right? But throughout the time that I was working with him, we never had any self-harm issues. He never made any threats of harming himself, but he had prior history. At the time, as a social worker, as a young social worker, I didn't know enough about the signs, the warning signs, and I'm looking at surface like he's always telling jokes, like we laughing every time I see him, you know, and it just it messed me up. Right? It really messed me up. And I had to step back from my work at that time. I took leave. I saw a therapist because it was a really traumatizing event. When I came back to the field, I returned to the work environment, but I realized that like my spirit was no longer there. And so that led me to going into the hospital setting and working in like the clinical health unit of like St. Francis Hospital, where kids are, you know, there for kind of like Lakeside. St. Francis it's closed down now, but St. Francis had a unit for children or in adolescents who were maybe suicidal or having behavioral issues. And so that incident with him led me to want to learn more about prevention, right? And how to help identify those signs. And so it made me become more passionate about doing suicide awareness events and educating other people on how to look for warning signs, especially in our community, right? Because we like, oh, Black people don't do that.
Yeah.
We don't do that. We do it.
For sure.
We do it, right?
For sure.
So, so that is kind of how I went on the path of going from being a social worker in like a case management position to leading me to the mental health path was losing my client.
Wow. That is a beautiful story. And I just want to thank you because a lot of people don't know this, but when I was in high school, I attempted suicide. I attempted it. And nobody would ever think that. I didn't tell anybody. A lot of people don't even know. So whoever's watching this right now, they'll be the first ones to even know that was even a part of my story. But I was always the chipper kid, the kid always in sports, always doing something. And, you know, something one day, a little voice in my head was like, just end it. And, you know, I did what I did. And I went to Lakeside. It was crazy. And when I went, I was like, get me out of here. Please get me out of here. Because there was some kids there that had really went through some stuff. And I was like, you tripping because your daddy didn't let you do whatever. But it was an experience. And I was like, you ain't ever got to worry about me doing that ever again. Because I was kind of probably just really having a temper tantrum. But I was ready to risk it all that day. And I was like, yeah, this is nothing I ever want to try to do. So I can totally understand, you know, how your client could have been that kid that was, you know, funny, charismatic, but, you know, he really had those deep thoughts in his mind telling him that he wasn't worthy or, you know, whatever the case is. So I want to thank you for even, you know, using that experience and wanting to help other people, because a lot of people, you never know. You never know. Some people don't have that outlet to talk to anybody. They just, you know, feel so alone in that moment, and that's the only way out for some people. So, like I said, thank you. So why do you think therapy is important?
I think like the last statement you just made about not having that outlet, right? Being able to connect with someone who you feel like can truly see you, right? And so I know, especially in our community, we are raised to don't tell nobody your business. You know, don't talk about what happens outside of this to anybody outside of this household, right? Almost in a threat from your parents, like you better not tell anybody, right? And so many things go unsaid because of their threat. So we are taught to suffer and struggle in silence. We're almost given a badge of honor for our ability to process through trauma, right? To show up for work the next day. She just had a miscarriage, girl. She went back to work 3 weeks later. Whoo, she's so strong. And we celebrating that. We're celebrating that, right? You know, when we talk about 1 in 5 people being sexually abused, 1 in 4 people being physically abused, 1 in 3 couples experiencing domestic violence, right? So when we think about the numbers and you hear people on social media talking about some, y'all just think everybody been through trauma. We have.
Yeah.
We have. And we're just taught to keep going, keep going, keep going. And it's nothing, you know, to a point where other people will minimize it. So you start minimizing it. And we just tuck it away and we tuck it away. But then we look at the news and we see all the stats of the crime. We see all these drug usage that's increasing in our neighborhoods. We see these children that are out of control. Why are we not able to connect the dots and realize that how we are dealing with trauma, how we are dealing with this cycle of poverty and the mentality that comes with it is impacting us in other ways. So for me, therapy is a way for people to let whatever toughness you got going outside, all that tough stuff you got going on, to take it off at the door and come in here and actually just be you, just be a person and have someone to see you for that, right? And not have to pretend like everything is okay. Because, baby, we are out here struggling.
No, facts.
You know, we out here struggling, and therapy for me is important for people to check themselves and realize that it's not okay. And it's okay for you to acknowledge that, you know. So that's why I love it.
Okay, so I wanna elaborate on something you said earlier about how our culture as Black people, we kind of have always said, you know, don't tell anybody your business. Let's keep what we got going on in the house. So why do you think that is? Why is therapy so stigmatized in the Black community?
So, you know, we can't talk about that without recognizing the cultural component and the historical component, right? So when we talk about our people in this country, we haven't felt safe to go to doctors. You got to think about the experiments that have been put on Black people and the things that happen just going to the doctor for something that was bothering you, what that could cause, right? Look at the Tuskegee experiment, right? You go sign up for something thinking that you're being helped and you being experimented on, right? And this was not just one incident that occurred. This is a historical thing that happened with our people. In addition to going to the doctor was a luxury. So when we talk about now, not just you going to the doctor because you bleeding, you talking about going just to talk to somebody, girl, sit down. Baby, sit down. Talking about you depressed. You better depress them dishes. Come on now. Like, who has time for that?
Right.
We haven't had the time to be depressed. We haven't had the luxury. So when we talk about, oh, Black people don't want, we haven't been able to, right? Our generation is just now like, you know what? Damn, this is a lot. Let me make time to do that. So we are just now being comfortable enough financially and emotionally to acknowledge those things with our generation. And so it's not no shade to our parents or our grandparents, but that was like, baby, we're literally trying to walk down the street and fight for our rights, you know. So you talking about going to see a therapist, who we gonna talk to about it? This old white man who is also a part of oppressing us, you know? So, like, we haven't felt safe to do that. So it's now becoming more normal in our community because that luxury has been removed and it's becoming more of a necessity. It's something that we're acknowledging as, like, just like we go to the doctor for our physical health, we have to go and check on our mental as well.
Facts. No, for real. So how can a person pinpoint when it's time for them to seek help? Like, let me go ahead and see a therapist. Some in right here.
What's today?
What is today?
What time it is? You know, so listen, a lot of times people wait until it's crisis. And so that's reactive, right? Especially when it comes to our kids. As a therapist, you know, people are more likely to take themselves, but when it comes to their children, we're not going unless it absolutely is a crisis, right? And so what I mean by crisis is they're cutting themselves or they're making threats to harm themselves or, you know, it has gotten extreme. But when we start seeing the warning signs, you know that you and their father are divorcing, or that y'all have been fighting in front of them, and you see them kind of isolating and becoming more withdrawn, becoming more quiet. Like, those are warning signs, right? And so, but it's like, oh, she fine. She just quiet. She like to sit by herself. And we ignore those things. And not because we're not caring parents, but life is busy. And we tired. And we overworked and underpaid, right? So when you as an adult notice changes in your child, there would be a time to sit down and talk to them. A lot of times the kids are not going to tell you. I don't care how much you talk. A lot of times kids are not going to tell their parent because they just don't feel comfortable doing it, or think they're going to get in trouble for sharing that, right? So there would be a good time for your children. But as an adult, we all got our baggage. We all have had things, whether you were physically abused or anything. We all have had experiences that have left traumatic stains on us, right? So I think if you find yourself definitely in crisis, or you find yourself not being able to manage the day-to-day emotions without feeling overwhelmed, then yes, it's past time. But you know that there are things that have happened in your life that you have not really processed, and you haven't had a chance to process it. And it's when the thought of it comes up, that conversation comes up, it's bothering you.
It's triggering.
You know, that's like, okay, maybe I should sit down and talk with someone. But therapy also can be preventative and just be a safe space, right? So just like we go to the doctor to get a checkup, like you go get a pap smear just to make sure old girl is intact, right?
Right.
We don't wait till she get bad. You know, you go and get a pap smear anyway just to make sure. Let me just check in and make sure everything is everything, right? The same thing with your mental, emotional health. Let me check in and make sure that I'm taking the necessary time to make sure that everything is cool.
Okay, I love that. So I want to know, or I want my audience to know, like, what are ways to identify depression? Because I feel like I know what depression is, and I have mentioned it to maybe a friend or somebody I'm dating or something like that. And a lot of people don't know, like, I want to tell them, you depressed. And they like, I'm not depressed. Like, no, you depressed. Because I've experienced it before, and I know what it looks like, but I feel like a lot of people don't know what's going on.
So I think that the word depression is triggering for people, right? And it makes it like, oh, ain't nothing wrong with me, right? It's just like the word anxiety is triggering, but those are normal emotions, right? So it's okay to feel your feelings. It's okay to sit with these feelings. The issue comes when we get stuck there, right? Just like anger. We all experience anger. We all have moments of anxiety.
Trigger word.
Don't get no charges, madam. Listen here. So how we measure things, right, is based off of if it's causing problems in different functions of your life, right? So you can experience sadness. Everybody has sadness. But when it's intense and we're not able to even sometimes identify why we're sitting in this sadness, right? I could just wake up on a Thursday and I'm feeling this deep, intense sadness, and I don't know. And that feeling just sits with me. And I just can't fight it. I don't even know where it may be coming from. You know, that's that lingering, ongoing depression, right? But we all may have those moments. But when we find ourselves stuck in it, right, that's when we talk about clinical depression, where it's impacting multiple areas of your life. You're not able to go to work without having crying episodes. We're not able to, perform at school or perform, or it's causing impact in our relationships. So we look at multiple areas to determine if a person is diagnosed as something, but we all experience emotions throughout our life.
Okay. So I feel like Black men and anxiety, depression therapy, it's like one is over here and one is over here.
Okay.
How do you feel about that? Do you feel like Black men are the ones who shun it away the most, or because I do. That's just my biased opinion.
So the reality is, men in general, right? Let's talk about suicide. So men are more likely to die by suicide than women. Women are more likely to attempt suicide, right? And so the reason for that is men are more likely to use lethal measures when they make their decision that that's what they're going to do. And they also have let it build up for so long, right? Because of this mentality that I got to be strong, right? And so we talk about the strong Black woman, but the idea of a man, just manhood, is supposed to be tough and strong, and you're supposed to take care of things. So that burden becomes overwhelming. Financial reasons are really one of the number one reasons why men are sit in depression, as well as die by suicide or attempt suicide, is due to financial stressors, right? So when we talk about them being less likely to talk to someone, they're showing weakness in their mind. They're showing vulnerability, and it's just not in alignment with that culture of toxic masculinity that may be, stigmatized on them. That like, no, you better man up. You can't sit down and cry about that. You better toughen up. And even when men do try to talk to their partner or their friends about something and try to open up and be vulnerable, a lot of times they're shunned for that. They like, bro, man, what's wrong with you, bro? You acting like girls, toughen up. So that's going to make them isolate or withdraw even more with those emotions, because I tried to talk to somebody about it. They make me feel bad about it. So I have to find my own measure. So men are definitely less likely to go to therapy. And with any mental health situation, for the most part, they're going to be less likely to seek treatment for it, right? Even if we talk about eating disorders, men are more likely to die from those because they're going to be the least likely to get the treatment for it. Whereas women are more likely to pay attention. Men don't want to go get their prostates checked. They don't want to, they don't want to go to the doctor because of that. I'm all right. I got it. So mental health is not unique in that way. It's a general thing of just that idea of masculinity. I have to work. I don't have time to be sick. I don't have time to be depressed because I got things to do. Everybody is depending on me. So I don't have time. I don't have time to be sitting at home crying. What I look like.
And I think they carry that burden. I've seen it with a lot of my friends, and like I said, even guys I've dated. I don't know why I attract the most depressed men, but
they want you to fix them.
And I got to get out of this. See, I might have to book an appointment because I'm a fixer, but we'll talk about that. We'll talk about that later. But I've seen it so much. Like, I've identified it with them. I know a lot of men that like to drink a lot. A lot of men who like to are over sexualizing themselves with women.
Those
like they try to cope.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, dude, get some help. Please get some help, because it's not normal.
It's not.
And they think it is.
But it's seen as a trait, a masculine trait, when the reality is that a lot of men who are hypersexual, that's due to something that has happened, right? And it's a reason. It's the same with women who are hypersexual, right? Whenever I have a client who, is sexually fluid or very hypersexual, I always ask the why. What is your relationship with sex? Because some people just like to have sex, and I ain't mad at it, okay?
Right.
Hello?
Do you, boo?
Yes, please, okay? However, what is your relationship like with sex? What was your first experience with sex like? And when we talk about that and they attach any type of trauma into how sex was introduced to them, then that's a red flag as to why these behaviors may be more increased in you, because that's how you feel like love should be received, right? That was what love looked like for you, being violated in some way. In a sexual way. So it's like, now this is normal. And as a man, if you were violated, then that's a whole nother conversation about you being hypersexual to show that dominance that I'm a strong man, and I'm a dominant man. So it's definitely a connection with trauma and how we show up in our sexual lives. And now it's just normalized as regular behavior because nobody wants to talk about the things. So, he's just a man being a man.
Right. And then having enablers, I feel like it doesn't help. So when you get that one person who's telling you like, hey, I would think it'll be helpful if you talk to somebody, and they like looking at you crazy, like,
because you calling me crazy.
Right.
And don't say the C word. Don't say the C word. Now, it's shifting a little bit. I will say, shout out to TikTok. I feel like TikTok and the generation like after us, our kids, they have normalized therapy. Social media has normalized talking about things and acknowledging it. And so it's like, oh, you're depressed? Almost to a point where it's like people feel like it's being overutilized. Ooh, it's a good place for me to talk about your favorite word here. Narcissism. Ooh, overutilized. Social media buzzwords, right? You can't hardly go on any social media site without somebody saying, "Oh, they are narcissists. They are narcissists," because you heard somebody else say it. And so the reality is that anybody can have narcissistic traits. But so narcissism is actually a personality disorder with very specific things that make you qualified for this. And so just because your man don't acknowledge what you said, or you feel like he cheating on you, and while you telling him about it, he don't connect, that doesn't mean that he has narcissistic personality disorder. He just don't give a damn about what you talk about. Okay? Right. So just be clear, right? But it's more to it than that. And it also, that can stem from being abused as a child. That can also stem from what we call helicopter parenting, or just like overindulging your children. So a lot of these women who baby in their sons.
And you know what? I don't mean to cut you off. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
But I have noticed that when I have talked to a narcissistic man, they always are a mama's boy. And they mama be very involved in their life. Like, they always say their mom is their best friend, and that's always scary for me because one, my mother passed when I was an adolescent. Okay. So I grew up with my dad, and me and my dad, we buddy tight, but I didn't tell him my business. I didn't call him and say, "Daddy, this boy just did this to me," or this dude, we didn't talk like that. So when I meet guys that are, super close with their moms, not saying that's an issue, but when you telling your mom everything that's going on in your dating life, that's scary to me, because I'm like, you can't tell your folks everything that you go through in your relationship, because, once they start hating them, the person you dating, you go back, it's like,
oh, it's we don't.
Right. So I've always kept everything on the low and not telling my folks. But yeah, they're always a mama's boy. So I'm like,
so I'm not saying this not a precursor, because there's actually, but it can be connected, right? But so they they will say that there's not a specific cause or like an identified thing that says this is what would lead to, or this is what causes that. But it is likeness, right, with certain things when we talk about people's childhood. But it's more than just his relationship with a woman, right? And so this has to impact them in multiple areas of life, in order for it to qualify for a personality disorder, and it's not just him not having empathy for certain things, or him being a liar doesn't necessarily mean that he has narcissistic personality disorder, right? So it's also that, extreme envy. It's that ideas of grandiose, where I'm better than their superiority. I'm better than everybody. And this is also multiple areas of their life. So not just because he a dog to these women, right, and we maybe want to put this title on it so that we can just kind of throw them away. But also narcissistic personality disorder impacts about 5% of people in the U.S. So all y'all men is not in the category, okay? Right. No, it's not. He just a dog, okay?
Right.
And he just wants, maybe he wasn't checking for you, maybe he just didn't want to act right due to other things, and it can be combined with other mental illnesses as well, right? But that is a personality disorder. But anyone, including women, can have narcissistic traits, but narcissistic personality disorder does impact men more than women.
Gotcha. So. Wow. So, okay, how do you usually help clients to navigate these feelings of anger, depression, trauma, things like that, betrayal? How do you usually help them navigate that?
So, just like with anything, when we talk about coming to therapy, let's first sit down and talk about what's going on, right? And so once we acknowledge, like we do what's called the intake process. And so that's me. I'm meeting you. I'm hearing why you're coming to therapy. I'm getting information on your backstory, your history, any type of traumas you've experienced, what your relationship patterns have looked like, just kind of getting all of that information. And then the next thing is we will develop a plan. What's important for you, not what I think you need to work on. I might think you need to work on being more honest and transparent in your relationships with your friends, whereas you may want to only focus on your romantic relationship, right? It's not about what I want you to work on. So the client has to establish that in terms of we do it together, but it's also what's important for you at this time, because it could be an issue, but you may not be ready to deal with that issue, right? Yeah. So we outline in your treatment plan, what are we working on? What are your goals? What's going on? What we gonna do together? And so once we outline what those goals are, what you establish is important for you, then we begin to, conduct our therapy sessions moving forward. And each therapist has their own specialties and modes of therapy that they use. And so I'm a trauma-focused therapist. I use what's called EMDR. I also am solution-focused as well. So it's important to know, like, the personality of your therapist because that matters as well. So when we start getting into working on those goals, I'm going to challenge that person to, like, let's sit down and talk about the why, right? So if you're dealing with anger issues, like, what is the force behind the anger? What about this made you upset? I challenge people. I expect my clients to take accountability. I'm going to provide a space to listen. But I give homework assignments. Hello. I give homework, and I'm going to hold you accountable. And so I think coming to therapy is not the same as just talking to your homegirl, despite what y'all see on TikTok.
Yeah.
It can be a safe space, and you can feel like I can talk to this person as if they are my friend. However, your therapist should still be challenging you. They should still have a therapeutic approach. It should still be a plan that's being utilized, not just we sitting here, hey girl, hey, and that's it. When you leave here, you should still know what I'm supposed to be doing. And after you leave your session, that's when the real work is going to happen, because it's not my job to bippity boppity boop and magic wand you. You have to do the work outside of there. I'm going to give you a roadmap, but you have to do the leg work once the session ends.
Okay, cool beans. When dealing with someone who has depression or has had severe traumatic experiences, how can a person be of support for them? Okay. Like, how can I support? If I have a friend who has depression or is dealing with all those different things, how can I support them?
Okay. So let me first say that we are not responsible for the things that have happened to us, right? The traumas that we've experienced. But you are responsible for your healing. Okay? You are responsible for doing the work. And so the people around you can encourage you, but it's not fair for me to just recognize that I have a sore and it's contagious and I'm just going to bleed and just spread it all around, right? So it's my responsibility to work on healing this issue, work towards healing and acknowledging it so that I'm, again, not just bleeding off on everyone else. Now, people feel like, oh, are we supposed to just tiptoe around this person? No, we can acknowledge and be aware that, okay, this person has suffered a lot of trauma. And so this helps me to understand them, but it does not excuse bad behavior. Right? So because I have had a traumatic upbringing, I'm going to use you for example. You lost your mom at an early age. I'm sure behaviors and things happened due to not having your mom, right? As a girl, like, how important is that to have her there? And so it made other people aware, like, okay, we know this baby lost her mom, so we know we need to be a little more gentle with her. But it's also your father and your family members' responsibility to make sure that you had the things that were necessary so that you could navigate those big emotions, right? A lot of times that doesn't happen. And then we're in adulthood and we 45 and we like, I'm still struggling with the loss of my mom and I'm angry about it, right? And so now I'm breaking windows and I'm slashing tires. I'm getting charges because somebody say something to me. She know I got a quick temper. Girl, listen, that's a you problem. That's right. Not a me problem that I have to tiptoe around you because you have unresolved trauma. You have to go do your work. So as a friend, I'm going to hold you accountable or I'm going to get on. Because I'm not going to be the punching bag for this is just what it is, right? So we have to talk about it. Friend, is this something that, I'm noticing you drinking a whole lot lately? Like maybe we got to talk to somebody or, what's up? What's going on? So being a support person and acknowledging that, but kind of getting to the why of, is something bothering you? What's happening? But I don't have to tiptoe every day.
And I feel like I may have been that person growing up unknowingly.
Okay. People had to tiptoe around you? Go on, say the truth. Go on, say the truth.
I'm not going to say tiptoe around me, but...
You was busting heads. Come on.
That sounds so terrible.
You was busting heads.
I was angry.
Okay.
And I didn't know why. I'm like, but I it was always maybe something had to trigger it. Like I was
Okay.
never. I'm a very sweet person. I'm a very, very sweet person. I'll give you my last.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember having to always defend myself, and then when I defend myself, it's like a switch.
Mm-hmm.
It's like she went from that cute little light skinned, well dressed girl to the damn Tasmanian devil, and it's like that anger had to stem from something else. It ain't just what happened in this situation. It ain't just,
It's
these
bigger
people
than
bothering you. It's something deeper. And I didn't realize it until I became older, until I became an adult and actually sought out for therapy myself. But I'm just like, yeah, I just remember as a child just being like ready for whatever at all times. From my experiences, and I feel like from some childhood things that happened to me when I was younger. So I can see that you've been gathering.
See,
me,
were
me
you
together.
defending yourself or were you always defensive, right? Because
Both.
when we walk around in a state of trauma, we're on edge, especially when we suppressing it. Because, everything's fine until we blowing up, right? And so that's when those people with this short temper and that quick fuse, because everything's fine. I don't need to talk about anything. I'm fine. But anger is a secondary emotion. So you're comfortable showing anger, and a lot of people are comfortable showing anger because that's more like, oh, that's okay. But what really happened is I'm sad. I'm hurt. I'm in pain.
That hurt.
And I don't want to talk about this, so I'm going to tuck that in my back pocket. But somebody accidentally bump into me in the hallway. What's wrong with you? And now I'm spilling out because you hurt me. I'm already on edge. Why would you do anything to me? So now I'm lashing out on anybody and everybody because I don't want to deal with my stuff. So you bleeding on everybody.
Wow.
And especially with men, anger is a comfortable emotion. It's an acceptable emotion. Oh, he get to fighting all the time. But what is he fighting? What is he mad about?
Yeah, why are you so
Why
mad?
is he angry, right? It's a secondary emotion. So I always challenge people, what's the first thing that you felt? Before you decided to shift to anger, what did you feel in first? Was it embarrassment? Was it pain? Was it sadness? Were you feeling lonely? Were you feeling ashamed? Like, what were you feeling first before you decided to bust the windows?
Bust somebody head.
Or break the... Oh, okay. Okay, come on. I said head buster. I said it was a head buster.
I'm just playing.
Let me pull up that JJ. What is it? JSS. The 201 register. See the.
I ain't never been to jail.
Let me see what kind of charges.
Thankfully, I have never been to jail. All the stuff that I have done in my life, all the fighting I used to fight a lot.
Okay.
Nobody would even think that about me when they look at me. They're like, you used to fight? You used to be a thug or something? I'm like, yeah. And, it took a lot of growth, and I'm thankful for that. But, therapy, it helped me a whole lot.
Okay.
It definitely helped me a whole lot. So I'm going to go ahead and ask you this last thing. So what are your goals as Pametria Brown, the therapist? Like, what is your work that you want to do in the world to make it better as a therapist?
Okay. So for me, it's so much work. I've already done a lot. Let me pop my ish for a second.
Pop your shit. You gotta say ish. Pop your shit.
I'm like, listen, I don't know if the people is like cussing appropriate, but so I have naturally been a therapist, right? Like I said, all my life, I've naturally been a healer, and so I think for me,
set up your lie. Go ahead.
Let me set it up for the people.
Go ahead.
Girl, it's been so long. How do I turn my camera facing me, child?
Girl.
Look, I feel like a real elderly person. Oh, there you go.
Yeah, go ahead and set it up.
So for me, like I said, when I was working in the hospital, I was led to work in the hospital after my client died by suicide. And so while I was in that environment, I didn't know what led me to that. I didn't know at the time that that's how spirit led me to that environment. But once I got there and I met the children that I would interact with, and I realized the diversity that was lacking in the therapists at the hospital, I knew like why I was there, because it was so many Black and brown girls and boys coming there. And they were like, oh, man, Miss Pam, we never met a Black therapist. Or, dang, And so it was a part of like, okay, this is why I'm here. This is what I'm intended to do. So it was almost like I was able to reach my client on the back end, right? You know, like he led me to that place. So for me, being there, I'm seeing a pattern of these kids are now in the hospital, but I wish that I could have caught them before they came to the hospital, before they swallowed the pill, before they picked up a razor, before, you know, they bushed somebody's head, you know, and the courts led them there. So I started thinking like, okay, well, what can I do to provide these services, the level of service that I'm offering here? What can I do to get that before? So I developed a program called Love in My Mirror, where I basically offered group therapy for girls, adolescent girls. That's my jam. And so I offered a self-esteem workshop, basically, and I promoted it as a camp because the idea of therapy and the word therapy scares people. So I promoted it as camp, a self-esteem camp. And so I started doing that probably like in 2015. And so I was able to do that every summer to help girls and provide them with the same skills and resources that they would get at the hospital on the outpatient level, right? And involved with teaching them social skills, teaching them about community hygiene, all types of things. And so that was a program that I've done through the course of that and the different events that I've done to help with self-esteem. I've written 7 books.
Okay.
So, you know, so I've written books to reach people outside of, because it's like, okay, I'm just one person. I can't be everybody's therapist. I can't go everywhere, but I can create products and, you know, market my expertise so that it can reach other people. So I wrote a children's book to help with self-esteem and confidence and loving your natural hair. I have an anxiety journal. I have a trauma journal. I have a planner created for Black women. I have a line of teen journals. So just being able to let my products reach beyond my actual network, right? So that's something that I have also done. And now I'm in position to launch my full-time practice, which is RBG, Mental Health and Wellness, which stands for Representing Brown Girls, because that's my specialty. I specialize in helping Black women and adolescent girls who are struggling with anxiety, depression, and trauma-related issues. So for me, that's the next phase is transitioning and going full-time with my practice, as well as knowing that it's a part of my mission to continue normalizing and making access available to my community. So I host community events called Self-Care Sunday, where people can literally come shop for a therapist. And what I mean by shop for a therapist, like we shop for our bags. You take your time and find a person who is a good match for you, right? So I do trainings on how to shop for a therapist, how to figure out who would be a good fit. And I am launching a website next month where people can go online nationally and shop for someone who is a good fit for them. Amazing. Shop for a Black mental health and wellness professional who's a good fit for them.
Amazing. How can we purchase any of your products, your journals? How can we get in tune with Pametria?
So Pametria Dominice on all platforms. I just like saying that. But on all platforms. I ain't on all platforms. But my website is PametriaDominice.com. So I have all of my products. A lot of my books are available on Amazon and Instagram, Pametria Dominice, as well as Black Therapists Matter.
Love that. Well, thank you so much. You online? Let me see.
Girl, look, it's the connection a little spotty. It keep restarting.
Oh, man,
but that's all right. Sometimes it catch up on the back end. So we'll see.
Well, I just want to thank you. Thank you so much. This is something I have been planning. I don't know if you remember on Facebook when people were tagging you back and forth. I feel like Star tagged you too.
Okay.
I was telling people that I wanted to have a therapist because mental health is super important to me. And I feel like it needs to be more open and more somebody needs to put it out there for our people. So I just want to thank you so much. I'm definitely going to stay in tune with you. I'm definitely going to send referrals or whatever the case may be. And congratulations on transitioning into your own private practice.
Yes.
That's major. I wish you all the success.
Thank you.
Blessings to your business, and we will definitely stay in the loop with each other. I definitely want to have you come get a facial, come get waxed, do something. We got to stay in tune because we from the Haven. We Haven babies.
Come on now.
Haven babies. Haven. Look, but thank you again. Thank you guys for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Make sure you guys follow both of us on social media, Pametria Brown. Check out her website. Check out all of her journals. And make sure you like and subscribe to the Sisterpreneur Podcast.
Do that.
And we out.